Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 114 of the Rise Up and Share Your Medicine podcast. I'm so happy to be here with you today and talk about leaning into the simplicity of your soul. And so I'm going to share why that is so essential, why it's so helpful, and how to do that. So if you're new to my work, my name is Lisa Espinosa. I am a spiritual career coach, and I help you share your gifts, share your what I call your unique soul's medicine with the greatest impact, really with the greatest love, in a way that is fulfilling and purposeful for you. So, in a way that rather than depleting and overwhelming you, actually rejuvenates and revitalizes you. That is possible. Now, that isn't to say that you'll never get tired. When you're really working on your dreams and fulfilling your life's purpose, there are cycles and stages where a lot of work is required. But that's very different. That type of tired is very different than being depleted and overwhelmed. I shared a post on Instagram about that today. Just how, well, it talked about this a little bit, how, you know the difference, right? You know when you go to bed at night and you're tired, but it's the good kind of tired, right? When you're like, all right, I achieved all these things. I worked on my dreams. I did these things I wanted to do. I stretched past my comfort zone. It was, one of my coaches calls it the worthy grind, right? That feels like, and you know that even though you're tired, you're going to be replenished, right? That the next day you're going to get up and you're going to feel replenished and your capacity is going to be increased, as opposed to going to bed feeling depleted, resentful, perhaps overwhelmed, confused about why you're doing so much work and you don't feel like you're really making progress. So that's not what we're talking about, right? When I say that I'm here to help you help more people, it truly means in a way that cultivates a life you love. So anyway, that's a little bit about me, but let's talk about today's topic, simplicity, right? If you haven't heard, my word for the year is simple. That's my word. And when I first received it, and for those of you who are like, word of the year, what do you mean? There's, I'm not sure who first started this, but there's, often this practice of choosing a word for the year. And the way I think of it is that the word chooses you rather than you choosing the word, right? It's a word that's going to be like your anchor, your target, your compass. And so I love the idea of my soul giving me, okay, what's the word for the year? Last year, my word was wellspring. And this year, as I was tuning in, I thought it was all these words, and then it was simple. And when I first heard it, I was like, that seems kind of boring. I don't want my word to be simple. But that was the word. And then as I really tuned in, I was like, wow, I love this word, right? So today is a little bit inspired by that. And so, as I often do, I looked up the definition of simple. Well, what does simple mean? Because I'm inviting you to lean into the simplicity of your soul. And so I looked it up and it says easily understood, uncomplicated, very straightforward, humble, unpretentious. So I was like, I love that. And then what I found, which was so exciting, is that this isn't used so much anymore, but in the past, it was like a historical definition. Medicinal herbs or medicines made from like the essence of a plant were called simples. I mean, how amazing is that? I was like, what? I mean, that just like so made my heart happy because, as you know, I often refer to your unique gifts as your soul's medicine. And I often think about you are all medicines in the cabinet of God, right? It's like in the pharmacy of God. In fact, I'm going to do a little post on that next week. But when I was like simples, I love that. So I was understanding why my soul gave me that word. But when we think about it, leaning into the simplicity of your soul, why is that important? Well, as I've taught many times, right, we are, and this isn't just my teaching, but right, we are a soul having a human experience. when I use the word soul, I mean your true essence, the the truth of who you are. Is a soul is that essence that is eternally connected to source. And then we agree to become a human, to have a human experience. And when we do that, we are no longer just a soul, we also are we also have an ego structure. And the ego structure is very complicated. The ego loves complication, thinks that in order for something to be worthy, it needs to be complicated and hard, and we have to earn it and all of that stuff. So, of course, thinking about the simplicity of our soul can make our ego very suspicious. But the truth is that if your intention, if your goal is to truly meet your goals for 2025, to fulfill your dreams for this year, your desires for this year, then the guide that's going to get you there is your soul. And the good news is that your soul has the simplest path, the simplest, most efficient path to take you from point A to point B. Like, imagine that if you were going on a road trip somewhere gorgeous and beautiful, and you could put in Google Maps or whatever you would use, and it gave you two options. And it was like, okay, one option is going to be really complicated. There's going to be lots of potholes. There's going to be lots of traffic in places. The road is really messed up. It's not that pretty. Or there's this other road where it's going to be more simple, efficient. There's going to be beautiful views. Yes, there's going to be surprises as well, but like, this path is guaranteed to get you there and get you there in the simplest way. Obviously, I think most of us would choose that version. But what we do, because we're living a human life and because the ego structure is so strong, is we tend to follow our ego structure. So when we talk about leaning into the simplicity of your soul, I really want you to think about those definitions, right? Your soul is unpretentious, right? Your soul is uncomplicated. Your soul is clear and direct. And if we think about that beautiful definition of a medicinal herb, right? The essence of the plant, it's like your soul is pure, right? There's a purity, unencumbered, uncomplicated. And so that's the invitation for all of us this year, and I think really every year. But 2025 is in numerology, and I won't go too into that, but is a year 9, right? Which represents completion, which represents self-mastery, which represents maturity, spiritual maturity, I would say. It's also, we're soon going to start the year in the Chinese astrology, the year of the snake, which is shedding, which is power, which is deep groundedness, right? And so the path to that, I truly believe, is the simplicity. And so today, what I want to invite you to think about, actually, let me give you some examples. So how does this look like, when I'm coaching my clients, how it might look like for you? Is like, really think about anything in your life that you're trying to create right now, specifically around your service, your leadership, the way you help people, or maybe for you right now. And I did a couple of teachings on that this week, that there are stages when we're called to really rest deeply, to have this time of rest and recovery. So wherever you are, to me, I really want you to start to understand that wherever, if your goal, if you have that prayer, and if you're here, I believe you have that prayer or that intention, is to help people, is to add value to the world, is to bring healing to the world, is to bring unity consciousness to the world, then whatever you're doing is going to do that. Like, whether you're working really hard, like taking lots of action steps, or you're in recovery and rest mode, that is also a service. I'm not going to go too into that right now, but I just want to name that, because if you're in that place right now, I don't want you to dismiss this or think this doesn't apply to you. Because, for example, I have several clients. I was really counting, like, how many clients? I have several clients, not quite half, but I would say about 40% of my clients right now are in deep rest and recovery. right? And so for them, their soul's guidance is simple: rest and recover. And yet the ego structure can really make that complicated. Right? Well, but how? How do I do it? Is it going to be a waste of time? Can I really do that? Is that allowed? Just it can't be that simple, right? So that's one example of how the ego can complicate it. Or if you have kind of more external goals, like I want to have more clients, I want more people to follow my teachings on social media, I want to make more money, whatever it is, then boy, can our ego really complicate that, right? Like it's going to be really hard. I have to take extra training. I have to do all these things. But then really tuning into your soul of like, what is your soul's simple path? And what's very interesting is that sometimes when you ask your soul a question, right, whatever your process is, whether you do that through meditation, whether you do that through taking walks in nature, journaling, however you ask your soul a question, maybe you do it through oracle cards, however you do it. I think there's a thought error that we often think that our soul is complicated. It gives us complicated answers, vague answers, right? Really like, what's the word I'm looking for? Cryptic answers. And I think the reason that happens is because often your soul's not going to answer you. It's not going to give you the whole blueprint, right? I've talked about this many times before, but I'll repeat it here again. So, for example, let's say your goal for 2025 is you want to have, I don't know, 20 clients. I'm just making that up. This is just a measurable thing. If that doesn't apply for you, you replace it with whatever yours is. And so you're thinking, this is what I want to do. And let's say you have 0 right now. So 20 seems like, oh my gosh, how would I do that? And let's say you have a meditation practice and where you're checking with your oracle cards and you're really like, okay, what is the path? How do I do that? Now, our ego mind, of course, would love it if your soul just came and said, all right, take out your notebook. I'm going to give you all 20 steps. First, you're going to do this, then you're going to do that, then you're going to do that, then you're going to do that, and then you're going to do that, and then that person's going to say that, and then you're going to respond that. But as lovely as that sounds, that actually would not work, right? We've talked about this before, right? It's like same for, just the example of moving to Mexico, relocating, right? I was born and raised in Chicago, and even though my ancestral home is Mexico, my parents are from Mexico, when that process was starting, just the inclination that my heart was giving me that it was time to relocate from Chicago. I didn't think to Mexico. I just thought it's time to move from Chicago, mostly because of the weather, mostly because I needed to have more times during the year where I could be outside and I could be in nature. And I really felt like that was important for my service, like that I would be able to help more people, increase my capacity if I could go outside more. And so I was like, okay, so where are we going to move? Where is it going to be? Is it going to be North Carolina? That's where my husband's family's from. Is it going to be New Mexico? Because I was really drawn to the Southwest. Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? And my mind was spinning because, of course, our ego hates uncertainty, right? And so, but when I would ask my soul, it was there was no clear, it wasn't like, yep, you're going to go to Mexico and you're going to move to the state and this is when it's going to happen. It was very much like little step by little step, right? It was like, well, go to New Mexico, go to Albuquerque and check that out. Then go to this other place and check that out. Now, my ego was very impatient, but I was like, okay, this is what I'm being guided to do. Now, if my soul had said, right, if when I asked, my soul had told me you're going to move to Mexico, I would have freaked out because that was a year before my youngest graduated college. And there's no way I would have been ready to hear that. There was no way, even just for me at that point, just exploring the possibility that I was going to be moving out of Chicago was a big stretch. So going back to today's teaching, so it isn't that my soul was being complicated or mysterious or wanted me to do all these things to prove that I was worthy to get the answer. My soul actually was being very compassionate and intelligent and wise, and was saying like, this is actually the path. And so I want you to understand that. So I know that's a big decision, but for you, when you're asking your soul questions, the answer your soul gives you, and your soul always answers you. You might not hear it in the moment. It might land in your heart, and it might come to you when you're taking a shower or taking a walk or doing the most mundane task. But your soul always answers, and your soul's always going to answer you with the simplest answer. But what happens, we often dismiss it. I can't tell you how many times, I meet with potential clients, I offer a free breakthrough consult, and clients and these lovely women, because mostly women, will say like, I've just been asking my soul and asking my soul and asking my soul, and I don't get any clarity. But as we talk and as I ask more questions, inevitably there will be something that comes up like, well, I have been getting this guidance to reach out to this one person, or I have been getting this guidance to, go to that yoga studio, or I have been getting this guidance, and they haven't done it. Not because they're bad people, it's just because it seems so simple, right? And so, again, going back, like, really keep remembering the definitions of simple, right? Uncomplicated, unpretentious. What else did it say? Humble, straightforward. And I think like, oh my gosh, how amazing that you have access to your beautiful soul. Imagine having access to that, like a mentor, a teacher, a guide that is all of those things: uncomplicated, straightforward, humble, unpretentious. And of course, your soul also has the higher vision, knows exactly where you want to go. And so, what I thought would be really helpful today is to reflect on where in your service or leadership is your ego complicating things? And again, this is not a judgment at all. We all do it because we all have an ego structure, right? That's often the default. And so to really bring that question forward of like, okay, where in my service, in my leadership, am I complicating things? And it might not be action steps that are being complicated. So maybe you're like, well, all the steps I'm taking are actually very simple. But if it feels complicated in your body, in your heart, in your mind, then it's because you're having some really complicating thoughts about it, right? So you might have thoughts like, this is hard. I don't know what I'm doing. This is confusing. This isn't working. I have to do it better. All those really make it complicated, because remember, think about your soul's thoughts. Your soul never has thoughts like that, right? That's why your soul can be so straightforward and direct and unpretentious and humble, right? Your soul is like this pristine, like receptive antenna to source, right? It's like the most powerful internet connection, right? And when we have those other thoughts, it's like having an internet connection that has all this interference, right? It's like you keep going in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And so if I could simplify this to 2 steps, right? Because again, my word of the year is simple. And one of the things that I've been looking at is like, well, what does that mean for my service, my leadership, my work, and obviously my personal life? But one of the things, and I've always valued simplicity in teaching. That's always been very valuable to me. Back when I was a 7th grade teacher, teaching teenagers, I was teaching science and reading. And for me, I always valued it. So this has always been something that has been important to me. But now this year, when, okay, this is my word of the year, it's like, oh, like even looking at the way I teach and I present and like, okay, this isn't necessary, this isn't necessary, this isn't necessary. Really get to the core essence, not shallow, because your soul's not shallow. It's not like, oh, let me just give you this teeny bit that isn't gonna help. No, it's like that, those simples, right? That I talked about in the beginning, the medicinal herb that gets to the essence, like essential oils, right? It's like one drop. I've been doing like my own mouthwash with like tea tree oil and peppermint oil. And my husband, I was sharing it with him because he was using like Listerine, and I was like, no, use this instead. And I was like, just one drop of peppermint oil and just one drop of tea tree oil. So he gets his glass, one drop of peppermint oil, that's not a problem. Then tea tree oil, it wasn't coming out. And I was like, just be patient because a lot. And then like, I don't know, like 7 drops come out with this amount of water. And I was like, oh my gosh. So of course I try to dilute it, make more water. He does it. I'm very, 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 very sensitive. He's fine after I diluted. I do mine. And at first I'm like, okay, this was okay. And then literally for like 2 hours, I was like, oh my gosh, this was too much for me. Because that pure essence is so powerful, right? So that's what you want to think about. That's like my soul is like the best essential oil ever, right? It's like the most powerful essential oil. And there's no other essential oil like it. So not like, doTERRA or Young Living or whatever essential oils you might use if you use essential oils, where there could be hundreds of different lavender oil brands, but you are your unique essential oil, the essence, the simplicity. And so the 2 steps for this are very simple. One is set the intention. I want to lean into the simplicity of my soul. Beautiful soul, show me the simple steps to do this, the simplest way to do this. And be mindful, because sometimes parts of us can translate like to boring. Oh, that's going to be like the boring path. That's going to be like the, not glamorous path or not whatever path. And simple doesn't mean boring, right? Like, I mean, a sunrise is a simple thing and it's stunning, right? And so know that when you're asking, show me the simplest path, there's a lot that is integrated in that, right? It's the beauty way. You're really asking the path with the most love, the path with the most authenticity, right? The path with the most impact, the path with the most soul. That's what you're asking for. And so step 1 again is ask, request, ask, show me the simplest path. And after that, step 2 is ask, okay, where am I bringing complication? Like, where am I complicating something? Show me. And in that question, so maybe your soul's like, you're overcomplicating, whatever your Facebook lives that you're doing, right? That's too, you can make it even simpler, right? Or you're overcomplicating how you nurture your body. Like maybe it's not those 20 steps you've been doing. Maybe it's just these 3 that are really the essence of it, right? It's like, and again, of course, your soul's going to say this with so much love and compassion, right? There's no judgment. Like your soul doesn't have any time for judgment, right? It's just like love, love, love. And so let's do like just a quick kind of tapping in. So you can start to get, and maybe just hearing the teachings, you're like, oh, I can see where I've been bringing complication, where my thoughts have been complicating things. Because, one other thing I want to say is if you're really committed to helping others, one of the most powerful ways you can serve humanity right now, or serve your clients, your students, your loved ones, is to have an uncomplicated brain, to have uncomplicated thoughts, right? To really have this pristine mind. Because then when somebody is in your presence, even before you start talking or teaching or anything, there's like, people feel that. And they might not say, wow, you have such a pristine mind. They might not say that. But it's like you're the tuning fork, right? That's tuning them into this place of like straightforwardness, clarity, right? Essence. That's so, when you look at the world, it can look so complicated. Oh, there's all these problems. How will they be solved? It's so complicated. There's so much. It's, that can lead to hopelessness and despair and all of those things. But when you come back to your soul and you realize, wait, actually, the problems of the world aren't going to be solved through the intellect, right? Through complicated solutions. They're actually going to be solved through the simplicity of my soul. And that's one of the greatest services I can provide for others. And so let's go within. This will be short. I invite you to just take a few. Again, this is going to be simple, right? Like this is a way to make it simple, right? So not like, oh, I'm going to talk to my soul. I need to like carve out 3 hours and burn every incense and have 20 oracle cards and light a candle. And now it's beautiful when you can have a little retreat for yourself like that. But again, it's simple. Like you want to also remember, thank you, remember that that talking to your soul is simple, so you'll do it more often, right? Because the ego loves to postpone it. Okay, that's a great idea. I'm going to talk to my soul. I'll wait till Friday at 3 o'clock when I have, a chunk of time, or I have to wait till my kids are, whatever, whatever, whatever. But if instead you're like, it's really easy to talk to my soul. It's like a very simple thing. My soul loves talking to me. Like it's simple to receive from my soul. My soul knows the simplest path. Imagine just having those thoughts over and over and over in your mind. Okay, so let's take a few cleansing breaths. And as you do that, just let yourself just really arrive in your body. And take a moment to just be aware of your hips, your knees, your ankles, your feet. And visualize beautiful roots of light going down your legs and out the bottoms of your feet deep into the earth. And with that connection with the earth, you're feeling very present, very grounded, very connected to the earth. And now bring your awareness to your heart center. And if it helps, you can bring the palms of your hands over your heart center as I'm doing. Now you might just do it for a moment, or you might just keep your hands there, or maybe you just bring your awareness there. But I encourage you, if you're someone who can get in your mind a lot, it can be very helpful to bring your hands here. And so now connected to your heart, just welcome your soul, just out loud, if you can do that out loud, or just with your inner voice to say, beautiful soul, I welcome you here. I'm open to your guidance. And just say, beautiful soul, it is my intention to connect with your simplicity. And as you say that, I invite you to visualize a path in front of you, right? That golden path that represents 2025. And if you're watching this and it's 2027, just whenever you're watching this, right? So this beautiful golden path that represents where you are now and where you want to be at the end of this year. And don't get sidetracked with like, well, where do I want to be? Just trust. This is the golden path that represents that. And you notice as you look at this path, as you stand on this path, you suddenly notice there's all these other paths. There's these paths over here, paths over there. There's all of this kind of tangled paths. And yet your soul is showing you this beautiful golden lit path. And your soul is showing you this is the simplest path. And the simplest path is the path with the most blessings for you and those that you are here to serve. It's the path with the most joy. It's the path with the most stretching, meaning that it's not just like you're like, blah, 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 but it's like it is going to be a path that stretches you past your comfort zone because your soul's always wanting to do that. But it's also the path with the most love, right? The most synchronicity I'm hearing, the most divine connections with others, the most beautiful surprises, right? Like it's the simplest path, the most powerful path. And so as you stand there, ask your soul to show you, beautiful soul, show me, where am I bringing complication? Where am I overcomplicating things? Where in my life right now? Where in my service and my leadership, in the way I take care of myself or others, show me where, maybe without even knowing, am I making things complicated? Oops, sorry. And as you ask that question, you notice that one of those tangled, messy paths that is there is lighting up. And you're like, ooh, that's the complication. And maybe in this moment you're getting clarity, like you hear, like, oh, okay, I know what it is. Or maybe right now you just see that. Trust that the answer is in your heart and it will be revealed later where the complication is. But whatever it is, notice that your soul is saying, but you can come back. You can come back to this simple path. And truly that is the message here, right? We are human. We're not ascended masters yet. We haven't reached enlightenment yet, at least not in linear time. There's an aspect of us that already is enlightened, but in this earth world, we haven't yet. So of course, there are gonna be times where we get caught up in all the complications and messiness. That's normal, that's to be expected. But what this teaching is saying is the more you can remember, wait a minute, if this feels complicated, it's because I strayed away from my soul. It's like I forgot. And I can always come back, just like Course in Miracles says, the holy instant. I can, in an instant, come back. And how do you do that? By literally just asking, beautiful soul, bring me back to your simplicity. And so with that, we're going to bring the palms of our hands together and we bow to each other in our own heart. And we step out of this beautiful journey with a namaste. Namaste, everyone. I apologize that my phone rang. That's never happened. So thank you so much, everybody. That was so wonderful. And I want to remind you that tomorrow is the first masterclass of the year. Create your breakthrough year. It's a free masterclass tomorrow, Thursday, January 23rd, 2:00 Central. You will receive the replay. You will have access to the replay for 7 days. And I'm so excited about that. So the link will be in the comments. It's also on my Facebook page, Lisa ESP23. I would love to see you. I'm so excited to see you next week for episode 115. I always, when I do this, want to remember what the title is of the next episode, and I always forget, but I know it's going to be a great one. And please share in the chat or in the comments if you're open to sharing what insights you received about this, about any of the teachings I shared today. Maybe you got clarity on, maybe your soul showed you like, oh, I'm bringing complication to this. I didn't even realize it, right? So I'm just going to pull one card for everybody from the Wild Woman Rising deck, and then we will be done. Thank you everyone for being here, Roxana, Summer, Jill, and anybody else, Namita, Joe, anybody else who's here, and anybody who's watching the replay. So let's just say that this card is a message, additional message from your soul on this topic, right? On what's going to help you lean into the simplicity of your soul and be on that path, that simple path. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow in that Create Your Breakthrough Year. It's like the path of 2025. How do you create that breakthrough year? What is the breakthrough year for you? What is actually the biggest obstacle? What is the most important requirement of that? I'm super excited. Okay, so let's see. Oh my gosh. Okay. You're going to have to just tune into your intuition with this, okay? It says, reclaim your soul skin. Look at this. Beautiful woman. Look at that seal. Your soul skin. So really tune into that. And there, I love that, like reclaim. To me, your soul skin would be this skin that is like attuned and resonates with the vibration of simplicity, right? Of authenticity, of unpretentiousness, uncomplication, right? Of overthinking. I think about the heaviness of overthinking, and please, I have so much compassion because I can totally do that too, right? It's like, if we could cut that this year, if we spent less time overthinking, over analyzing, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, like what would that be like? So, right, you ask yourself what this means for you, right? And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow in the masterclass next week, and next week also for the podcast. And also remember, I have sessions open for the free breakthrough consult. I would love to talk to you and love to help you. All right, bye everyone. Talk to you soon.